my name's Cody, and welcome to the Homestead. If you watched the last video where we managed to get the hay baled and get it in the barn here, it actually turned out really nice. So check that video out if you didn't see it. Before we get into today's video, I do want to just take one of these bales and just double check and make sure that nothing's heating up. This one, you can just tell that's dry, that's like wet. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is we'll probably pull this one out. I don't really notice that it's heating up. It does have that dryness on the top, but I think there is just a little bit of moisture in there. So we're gonna pull that one out. We're gonna feed that one right away, and we'll throw one of the dry ones back in there. That is pretty much the only one I was concerned with. Double check some other ones in here. We could stand these up on edge too, and that way they can get a lot more air. But what we may end up doing is yeah, this one feels good. Rest of these feel pretty good right here. I knew it was a little bit here right at the beginning where we started stacking, so we'll feed that one and we'll throw one of those other ones on there in that spot. This is Luna. One of the newest additions, I guess, to the farm. My wife put a fancy collar on her, and she was a kitten that we had come across actually behind the hay pile right here. We came across three kittens, including her, and eventually the mom ended up moving all of them and they disappeared. Didn't see them again. It went about 2-3 weeks, and then she popped up again by herself. No mom, no brothers or sisters. So I'm not really sure what happened. Maybe she got abandoned or whatever, and it really only took a day for her to warm up to us, and now here we are. So yeah, there's Luna. Today's video, I want to check our corn yields. What I mean by that is our estimation of what our yield is going to be. We're going to probably start at our worst field and work our way to what I think is going to be the best. And we also made a video of our worst fields to our best fields of corn. So if you didn't see that, you can also check that out as well. The first field up at Mom and Dad's, this is the field that we pretty much mowed all of it off. We had a field down in the bottom there, and that was mostly weeds. So I don't even know if I would consider this a field. We actually mowed more off than what we did the first time. It's not very big. Yields in here are going to be very minimal, if anything. So this field's really probably not even worth checking, just for the simple fact is this is not going to be an accurate representation of kind of what everything is going to be like, but you might as well check it anyway just to kind of see where we're at. As you walk in here, you can obviously see that the weed pressure is very high. There's no doubt about that. This was not sprayed, so definitely a little high as far as that goes. And there's not a great value of ears in here. The ear size, not very big, not really worth anything. Probably could have mowed this whole field off and it would have been totally fine, and that would have been that. You can start to see we are starting to get a little bit of dry down. The plants are starting to die. So a couple more weeks, maybe a month. This year right here is actually kind of decent. We do have kind of some black specks going on in the leaves, some lighter areas. Nutrient deficiencies in here, I'm sure, were pretty high because of the fact that all the weed pressure was robbing a lot, robbing moisture, so on and so forth. Again, this is the worst possible field that we have. So Pioneer has this really nice corn yield estimator kind of application on their website. So basically you do 1/1000th of an acre your average number of kernel rows, average at least 3 ears. I'm only gonna probably do 1 ear, and then obviously you do your number of kernels per row. So your row width is what you're gonna wanna double check. We did 36-inch rows, so we're gonna need to check a 14-foot 6-inch row. And we're gonna have to count the harvestable ears on that. Now, in this field, obviously that's gonna be a pretty low number because there's a lot of plants that do not have any ears on them. So we're gonna have to pick a spot that is a little bit better in the field, but we're just gonna go randomly, probably this row right here. Because naturally, you're gonna wanna go and pick the biggest ear in the field, and that's not gonna be an accurate representation of what your yield data might be. I stepped off a line roughly 14 feet, kind of out there. So we have, I don't even know, we're not even gonna count that one. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Not very good. This is the best ear that we have right here. I could pick that one. I'm not going to because, again, that's not, we have very minimal of that. The nicer ones are kind of up towards here, but a lot of them have been eaten off by either squirrels or deer, raccoons, stuff like that. So I will just grab this one's kind of on the smaller side, so we'll just grab this one. Definitely not a huge ear. Some that really didn't form into anything. It looks like maybe some disease on there. This is kind of what we're looking at for this field. There are a little bit bigger ears than this, but this is probably more of the accurate representation of what this field would actually do if it were an entire field going all the way out to the end. So we'll just take this ear, harvestable ears in 1/1000th. We'll put in 12 for that. Number of kernel rows per ear. So there's roughly 14. We're just gonna say 19. We'll throw that in there. 39 bushel to the acre, if this were an acre field and if everything was this size. And that is also excellent growing conditions with heavy kernel grain. It could be as low as 31. So we could be anywhere in the vicinity of 20s to 30s in the bushel per acres. This field is by far the worst field that we planted. Heavy weed pressure, robbed nutrients, robbed moisture, and we ended up mowing half the field off. So if we would have sprayed this field and done everything the way we did all the other fields, this would have been a complete night and day difference here. We'll save this, we'll feed it to the chickens, and we will move on to field number 2. Similar thing here with the second field, but not as bad. The ears here are definitely a lot bigger. The stand is a lot better. But this is another thing we've been dealing with. Probably squirrels, raccoons, deer. So we'll take that same thing, feed that to the chickens, but same thing here. We're gonna run into issues with wild animals coming in, eating it. And that's kind of the thing which I'm very worried about in the field that I call the Big Creek field, which borders the creek. If we get a lot of rain here towards the fall, it's gonna really be hard to get in there to harvest anything without getting stuck or anything like that. And the longer we have to let that sit in the field, the harder the deer pressure is gonna be, the less yield we're actually gonna get out of that. So right here is a bunch that animals in there, probably squirrels and stuff, taking them down in the woods. But you can see definitely some weed pressure that was in here as well. It is starting to dry down, same thing. But the ear sizes are a lot better. Not the best, but they are better. And there is a lot more, probably in 1/1000th of an acre compared to the field we were just at. This corn field is very short. Again, we had weed pressure. This got sprayed a lot later than it should have. But this ear here is probably 5.5 feet and still has a really decent size ear on it for the plant size. You got ears going the whole way down through there. Not terrible, but again, so you come down through and then you come over here. There's a corn row, there's a corn row, and there's a corn row. Reason why this is so bad, and there's probably, I think there's 4 rows here and 4 rows up above. We planted our potatoes in there, which you can't even see. I don't even know if those are gonna produce anything with all the weeds. I didn't want to get super close when we sprayed for weeds, so that is why this looks better than that. And walking in here, it actually looks like our potatoes are ready for harvest. The plants all died, everything died back, so I should probably get up here and do that. I would definitely say the upper side, upper portion of this field, we came up down there, is definitely by far the worst, where there's no ears hanging. So whether that be raccoons, deer, mix of both, whatever the case may be, they definitely hit it a lot harder up here than down at the bottom side. This is very similar size ear as we had before. Same thing, not really filled out on the one side, which could have been a pollination issue. And we end up with some of this stuff again, which that I guess could be ear rot. So hopefully these less terrible quality fields are the only ones that have that. And it could be just some ears, because if we go to the one that these squirrels pulled off, this one looks perfectly fine. This field, I'll call this Hilltop. We had 18 harvestable ears in 1/1000th of an acre. Number of rows, we had 11 on this one. So this is probably going to be a similar yield data. Yep, 19. That one's a little bit better. So we ended up having on this one 47 bushel to the acre, excellent, down to 37 bushel to the acre. So again, not good at all, but better than the last one. Then we go down to the bottom of the hill. Hilltop field was up there. This is a small little plot that we have down here. This might be 1/4 of an acre, maybe a little better. This is starting to really dry down. This field did a lot better. There's still a lot of animal pressure here. Plant height, definitely a lot better. We're at about 7 feet. Ear size, pretty good. Obviously, there's some variance in a lot of them, but we're starting to get much better. I honestly did not realize how bad this was for the pressure as far as animals. You can just see there is no ears hanging on this anywhere in here. It is just demolished from deer, raccoons. This is like the first ear we've seen. That one's been taken off, and that's like a 20-30 foot row. This field is gonna, there's nothing all the way down through there. So probably not the best place to plant corn with woods all the way around it for the most part. The deer just come right out and back in. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So even so, with the data that we're going to end up getting, you can almost guarantee it's going to be lower because of the fact that there are no ears really on this bottom section of the field the rest of the way out. In through here, however, very, very nice. Lots of ears hanging in here yet, and the plant height has actually increased to about 7.5, 8 feet. This year is definitely better. 2 little spots right there. But this is kind of, I'd say, average. Some ears are actually a little bigger than this, but I'm not going to choose the biggest ear. And again, with having so much animal pressure there, it's going to be a little bit lower. This is also a good representation of how much better they are getting. So this is the third field. Definitely a difference there. And this actually had 28 harvestable ears within 1,000th of an acre. So much different compared to our, I think the first one was 12, the second one was like 17. So big difference there. So this ear here that we just picked, we had 28 harvestable ears, 14 rows with 28 average, roughly, kernels. Now I should be taking 3 ears, I understand that, but I just want to kind of get a baseline, rough number of what we could be looking at yield wise. So 28, 14, and 28. That's a much better number. Obviously, it still could be better. There's much more room for improvement there. 137 bushel to the acre in excellent conditions and 109 bushel to the acre with very poor conditions. So we're definitely getting better compared to our first field, which was very bad at 31 bushels to the acre. This field here, we get a much different scenario. Some weed pressure down low here, but the overall field condition is pretty nice. And I know we obviously have some deer pressure too. There's a stream down low here. Okay, four-wheeler. There's a stream down low here, and the deer just kind of come out and go right in, especially the end rows. So we're gonna kind of go in the center of the field, see what it looks like. But just right out here in the couple of the end rows, these are the kind of ears that a lot of these have. Same thing here. Starting to look a lot better. A lot of those silks are hanging out, which is good. Should have had good pollination. Plant height, much higher. Not too bad as far as the leaves go. A couple spots here and there. Some black spots maybe. Overall, this field is definitely a lot better. And we're moving towards obviously the best field. So it's going to continue to do that and going to continue to look that way. But just the ear size on some of these is really nice. This one actually started to grow a second one. This field had 23 roughly harvestable ears in 1,000th of an acre, and a much different scenario as far as ears go. Much better looking ear. No disease. A little bit maybe at the top, but the kernels all look really good. We are getting some denning. Not a lot of tip back though, so that's a really good sign. So 23 harvestable ears in 1,000th, 14 rows with 41 kernels in that row. That came to 165 bushels per acre in excellent conditions and 132 bushels in light conditions. Not too shabby. Honestly, I could live with that, being this is, you know, the first year that I've done this really. So it's all a learning process for me. We're going with it this year, and we're learning things. We have learned things. I know stuff that I got to do differently, but I'm happy with that. And there's some smaller ears out there, don't get me wrong. There's some smaller ones, but there's also some bigger ones than this. So this should be a rough average. Again, we should have pulled 3, but for the sake of doing this, I'm just only going to pull 1 because I know it's not going to be accurate even if I do 3. So it could vary so much. I just kind of want to have a rough idea. And I'm going to go by the low numbers with poor and maybe even figure a little lower. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comments down below. This field I have not checked in quite a long time. I come down here and just kind of observe a little from the road, but I have not walked out here in quite a while. This stuff again is starting to dry down. The plant height in here, much taller than the last field we were in. Definitely some deer pressure in here for sure, because this is surrounded completely by woods and water on the other side. So they literally do not have to go anywhere. We did have a little bit of storm damage in this field towards the bottom section. In fact, I think that is right up here where there's a big bare spot. We had a tree fall in here. In fact, some of the brush is still laying up there. We had a good stand. Ear sizes are not hateful, but definitely by far not the best. Kind of a similar thing here. Ear's pretty nice. Not a huge amount of tip back. This field we have a lot of deer pressure in, so this is going to affect things a little bit more. Some of the ears are bigger. You go up there, you have some decent sized ears. That drops our number pretty drastically, just because of the deer pressure. So the deer pressure is really going to affect yield. If we would have had, you know, a lot more harvestable ears, that number would have went up. For instance, if we would have had, you know, let's just say even 20 ears, it goes from 67 to 96. So definitely could be better, but deer pressure, animal pressure, there's a lot of variables in this. For instance, this ear is much bigger around, but then you have some in here like this. And then looking up there, you have a lot that the ears are just gone. Raccoons, deer, ripped them off, and that's what we're left with. Wonder how cut up and itchy, scratchy I'll be after walking through all these cornfields. Should have had better attire. Here is the Big Creek field. Much nicer. Probably the nicest we have. I would say this is the nicest field we have out of all of them. And plant height wise, definitely tall. Ear size, definitely decent. Look at the leaves. Definitely some spots on there. Not hateful. Now this is the field that we had all that flooding in, and then we had our pumpkin field in here, which flooded, killed all those. But it didn't seem to affect the corn very much. Even the end rows you're walking out through here, the ears just look really good. There's going to be a variance throughout this field, as there is in all the fields. So we'll walk in the center here. We'll walk out here a little ways and walk in the center and kind of see what we're looking at. Here's a bunch missing off this end row. That doesn't surprise me at all. I would say plant height in here, probably closer to 9 feet. There, something was chomping on that, but that is just a massive ear. A lot of the ears are this size. There's some smaller, there might be some a little bit bigger. I just grabbed a random one. I think this is a later maturity corn, so this has a ways to go yet. Couple kernels that look a little maybe diseased or something, but a little bit of tip back maybe. Definitely some denning going on, but not terrible. On this one, it's bigger around, a hair shorter than the one we had earlier. 22 harvestable plants, 18 rows, and 36 per row. we are looking at 178 bushels to the acre or 142. I'm definitely not disappointed in them numbers at all. Again, this is my first real year planting corn. So with that, if we average even 130 bushels to the acre on this field, I'd call that a success. As you can see, there's definitely a variable across all the fields that we have. Field 1 and 2 are very similar with what we're looking at there. 2 and 3, kind of the same difference. Very similar. And field 3 and 4, pretty close. This one is a lot thicker around, so a lot more rows. I think this one had 14 rows, this one had 18. Regardless, for our first year, we should end up with some corn. Where did you come from, little fella? I probably had to have almost stepped on you. Go on, move along. That's gonna do it for the final field. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure our numbers aren't accurate, but it kind of gives us an idea, maybe what we're looking at. And I'm not gonna get my hopes up either, because we have a couple weeks, maybe a month for this stuff until we can actually get down here and start harvesting it. So the deer pressure isn't gonna change, animal pressure won't change, it'll probably increase. So it's one of them things where the yield could potentially drop, and it may be lower than I'm figuring anyway on our poor conditions. So this field here did remarkably well compared to some of the other ones. And you've seen the ears on the first two. The first field, I wouldn't even call that a field. We probably won't even take the combine up there and harvest that, just because of the very minimal amount that is going to be up there. So we'll see what happens. Whatever we get, and I'll be grateful for what we do get. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. We'll see what happens come harvest. Harvest is going to happen very quickly, and we don't have the combine ready to go yet. We need to get the corn head mounted and get all that stuff ready. So when the time is coming, when the time does come to harvest, we're ready 100% and we can roll. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.